Welcome everybody to another episode of Our Discourse. Today I have a very special guest to which I've flown all the way from Israel to Texas to interview. Mr. Rucka Ali. Welcome to the show, Rucka.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Very nice to be here and to see you in person. So Rucka, you are an artist, is that right?
Yeah, I would say so.
You consider yourself to be an artist?
Yeah, the more I learn about myself, the more I see that as my personality type.
I see. So what could you tell us as an overview? What kinds of arts are you dealing with?
In terms of what I consume.
What do you create?
What do I create?
As a creator?
That's an interesting question. It's something I'm always revisiting and asking myself. I think I'm largely influenced by Mad Magazine. Are you're familiar with that?
No.
All the way from Israel? No, I'd be surprised if you were.
No.
But it's a big part of American satire from the 1960s and 70s. So it's a very kind of snarky magazine for kids basically, but and teenagers and adults could get into it as well. It was just kind of lampooning the modern world, making fun of popular TV shows and musicians and celebrities and stuff like that. Current events. Now over in Israel, you've got some comics. You've got Uli Fink.
Yeah, there's the earlier one. Do you know Zbank?
He should have a statue in Israel.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
You guys don't deserve him.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't deserve him.
That's not the hero Gotham City deserves.
Right. So that's the type of thing that impacted me growing up, and trying to understand what is that in artistic terms. Now that I've gained this vocabulary, reading Ayn Rand and hearing all these real art aficionados describe art and the meaning of it and what goes into art, what makes it good. I keep on kind of returning to my childhood influences and trying to understand what does it all mean? So it's a really deep question. What type of thing am I?
So it's a very personal issue for you, art. It's very, very deep. You wake up in the morning. Do you think about art? Do you think about creating more? Or how does that incorporate to your daily life?
I'm always cracking myself up, always thinking about stuff, creating stories in my head and, connecting unrelated things to each other, trying to find the absurd side of things. So I'm always kind of thinking, and once in a while something pops in my head that's just a funny enough blending of concepts that it ends up becoming kind of a piece.
So why do you think you're more attracted to funny things?
Because I find stuff funny. The greatest moments in life to me are when you're laughing.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting question. There's a guy who creates like a screenwriter, for example, and you decide to write comedy instead of writing drama. There's a choice here. Why did you choose comedy over drama? What specifically about comedy that grabs you?
Sometimes I am dramatic, but mostly, yeah, it's comedy. I guess that's just kind of mostly what I find attractive to try and find, in the stuff that I'm thinking about and the stuff around us. Stuff is happening in the culture. So I think another way of answering why comedy or whatever it was that you asked, is to say, there's so much absurdity in the world, and and originally hailing from Israel, from Jerusalem, growing up in a very religious community, I've seen some things. I've seen some adults who behave less rational than your average child. I've seen the good guys, quote unquote, the secular guys,
which are
act even more crazy at times. And where's the adult in the room? So, in my own weird way, kind of creating outrageously absurd scenarios, it's drawing attention to the fact that something is absurd, which sort of makes me kind of the serious one in a certain respect.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Very interesting. After you finish a great song, how would you describe that feeling? And it becomes successful.
That's a good feeling.
Do you do that for the process more, or more for the feeling of achieving?
it's all about the process. You know, you can't be so motivated by future emotion. It's the excitement of creating something, you know, like I imagine you get excited at the thought of producing this podcast and other work, you know, you got even just an appointment with a client or whatever it is, whoever it is that you meet for your job. It's like you look forward, you can't wait to do it. You know how to do it right. You know, you're going to get it right. And everyone else is going to see that you're the man for the job. Working is exciting when you have, you know, something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I remember when I was creating a film when I was in high school. It was probably one of the most difficult things I had to do. We were out in the field. It was very hot, and I just grabbed some friends, you know, from high school, forced them to work with me on that thing. It was a horrible nightmare, but it was so much fun doing that. And that is what I look for. For example, when I'm thinking about creating a movie, I look for the process. I don't care really. After you know we're finished, we put it on YouTube, then it's not interesting anymore because the experience has passed. So
yeah, I mean, it's best to just leave it alone once you release it, but occasionally you do have a hit, you know, if you're creative, and I know you are, and I've had a few hits. It is really nice to enjoy that once you see those numbers fly. But for the most part, that's just not going to happen, or you get so used to it that it's mundane, and you're just not excited by those numbers anymore. You need it to be even higher. So at the end of the day, it can't be about, you know, the returns. It really has to just be about the joy of creation. But when I was in high school, I learned how to edit videos in school. I went to a public school for most of high school, and we had like a video production class. I mean, this was 2003.
Wow.
I never had access to anything like this before. It costed like 10 grand a piece for each computer that could edit videos. Forget about having one at home.
It was still Final Cut though, wasn't it?
It was Velocity that we had. And I was like, to me, the idea that I could create a video was like, it was like a magical power. Yeah. It's like some Harry Potter stuff. And I've never even seen Harry Potter, but I imagine I know there's some magic.
I never saw that, but I know.
You're like the first guy I've met in my life that hasn't seen Harry Potter.
No, I never seen it.
Good.
Because Yaron always says that it's so great, Harry Potter.
Yeah, so it's like, let him watch it then, right?
Yeah.
No, but see, this is why we're busy, right? We got you and me, we don't have time for this wizard stuff.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'll still invoke Harry Potter for the feeling that I got.
The viewers understand.
I think they know what I mean. It was so every chance I could get, I was, you know, skipping other classes and getting to school early, you know, spending my lunch time editing videos and, you know, making music videos, overdubbing my voice over stuff, just whatever I wanted to do, I was creating. And then when high school ended, I didn't have any kind of video editing software, and computers back then were, you know, now it's 2005 or 6. Computers are clunky, you know, video editing software. If you could even get your hands on it, it wrecks the computer and the computer can't handle it. So I got depressed. I got really depressed, like not being able to edit videos. Occasionally a friend would have a laptop that came with like Windows Movie Maker. Yeah. And now I'm looking for what stock photos and videos came with his laptop so I could import that into the Movie Maker and add music to it and make some music videos. So, I mean, this was long before every phone that everyone had could edit videos and broadcast to the world. I mean, it was a simpler time, you know? Yeah. And I really, really learned to appreciate the ability to produce videos. So I guess lyrics are not the only thing I create. I think editing videos are another thing I do. And again, you really see the Mad Magazine and comic book influence, not like superhero comics so much, more like satirical, like cultural commentary, social commentary type of stuff. Yeah, you like
to also add that aspect to your works.
The idea of like, I used to do this when I was like 10, actually cutting out pictures out of magazines and pasting them to paper and turning that into a comic, like a Far Side. You know, Far Side got Gary Larson.
No.
You're not familiar with that. That's a very American comic strip. But yeah, that's like, it was one picture with a caption. Like that was, it was not it's not episodic. It was not a series. It was just one joke per release.
Yeah.
And like, it's like kind of like the Family Guy flashbacks, you know? It's like Mr. T, you know, handing the football to whatever. Yeah. It's like one reference to one thing, one joke. So that's kind of me as well. You know, I don't go on forever telling a story. I just like to hammer something hard and move on to the next thing.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you have been doing editing since 2003. That's unimaginable for me.
Yeah, were you born yet?
I was born in 2002.
Wow.
So if when I was 1 year old, you were video editing. That's amazing. So I want to go back a bit to talk to you about the lyrics that you create. What is the process of writing lyrics, coming up with good lyrics? What do you think?
Lyrics are not really about the words, and that's a weird thing for me to say as a comedic lyricist or someone who's always very explicit. You know, like rap and like comedic parody stuff. It's like clearly about the words, but it's not really how you got to think of it. Really, lyrics are a aspect of music. It's the sound of the vocals over the music. Yeah. So that's like kind of the reason most like comedic music is not very good, in my view, is that it's too like in your face with like words. Like here's, you know, here's what I want to say. But it really should blend with the music like any other song. And that's kind of how I look at it.
So you take an editor's perspective on it.
Editors.
It's like a video editor. You combine the music with the video.
Yeah.
Right. So you have that perspective of also the editing process.
Yeah, and because I do a lot of like song parodies, I really listen to how the lyrics sound over the music, and it's important that like certain key moments in a song be preserved, because those are like the things that really hit you hard. So, yeah, where someone like Weird Al Yankovic, he's, you know, I want it that way, turns into I'll buy it on eBay. Like it sounds nothing like the original. So to me, he loses the essence of the piece. For what would rhyme? I want it that way. I want it ironic. Batcave. Welcome to the ironic Batcave. See, ironic Batcave would make a better parody than I'll buy it on eBay. See, winning you over.
Yeah, it's great. So wow. So, but how do you come up with the actual words? I think when I ever try to, my father is a poet, by the way. He comes up with a poem like I know poems and lyrics are a different thing, but like the process of thinking about these words and how do they combine with each other, and also thinking about the music. How would you have any advice for, let's say, a starting lyricist?
Start practicing. Start writing. Consume what it is that you. I mean, you got to love the art. You know, so I don't like I said, I don't love comedy music, but I love music. I mean, if I had to pick one art form and that to keep and lose all the rest, music is something I can't live without. If I lost my sense of hearing, my first thought would be, but what about music?
Yeah.
So I'm always listening to music day and night. And because you love music, you end up really appreciating what goes into lyrics. So if you're me, you're able to kind of use it for the devil. You know, I end up making fun of pop music. I end up doing like ironic kind of rap a lot, and like sort of you know, using what I've learned about lyrics sort of instinctivly. I am able to kind of come up with, but you know, for the absurd.
Yeah. So tell us more about the absurd. You've mentioned it a few times already.
Yeah.
The viewers might be interested to know exactly what you mean by it.
Yeah. So I've been reading a lot of postmodern and like post-structuralist, which was kind of like an earlier sort of predecessor. Like it came a little bit before the postmodern school. But
Albert Camus.
I don't remember a lot of the names. I know there's Derrida was a postmodern. There's a number of names I keep forgetting. Yeah. I'm like reading like summaries of them, but like sympathetic summaries of postmodernism. They're not all critical. They're not all debunking it. But I'm reading a lot about it. A lot of what like the 20th century, you know, French and American philosophies. And as I'm reading the postmodern stuff, I'm like, this is so me.
Right.
Like this is so me. Like I know that's not like a popular thing to say in like circles that appreciate high art and objectivity, but it's like, oh my, this is like the world I grew up in, and this is the humor, and they were into parody, you know, because but to them, like parody, the postmoderns, the parody is it's exposing that nothing is real. That's what they would use parody for. Now, like, so you look at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Disneyland, it's obviously it's like a parody of a kingdom or of a city. So it's making fun of a city, but it doesn't end there. It doesn't just end with like, okay, this is a fake city or a fake kingdom. The postmoderns say Disneyland is extra deceptive because by being so obviously fake, it makes you think that everything outside of Disneyland is real. But really, everything outside of Disneyland is as fake as Disneyland.
In what way is it fake?
They would say all we have are ideas, like all we have are symbols.
What Plato says.
Yeah, you can see some similarity for sure.
Yeah.
But they don't have. There's no world of forms to the postmodern. There's no like perfect dimension somewhere where concepts exist in perfection. Really, all we have are symbols that refer to other symbols.
Mm-hmm.
But the case they make for it is pretty complex. So it's not easy to just dismiss. Like one of the many points you might hear is like when you see a picture of Madonna, or you know that's a celebrity, right? You see a picture of Madonna. Like, what are you actually looking at? That's not a real person, right? You're seeing an image carefully crafted. You're seeing, like some image, a processed symbol of Madonna, and you know there's no actual person that is what you're consuming there. So you're consuming a symbol of Madonna. And the only relationship that symbol has is not to anything in reality, but only to other symbols of Madonna or to other symbols of a person or of a woman or whatever it is. Like there's just symbols everywhere, signifiers, but there's no signified. So maybe we could put it as like there's only abstractions, but no concretes. And again, it's not easy to debunk. It's fascinating. So there's often a kernel of truth in what they're saying. Yeah, it's true. When you consume a picture of Madonna, you're only really getting a symbol that refers to what exactly? It's not easy to really understand. And yes, language does impact how we proceed, how we operate.
That's a problem with universals.
Yeah, but the way that the 20th century French and Americans went about it is kind of unique and very interesting, and raises a lot of interesting questions. Now, the problem is there was no adult in the room. You know, there was no adult philosopher saying, okay, all of that.
So they're taking it to.
There's no. At the end of the day, you do need to say, look, reality is something, and we need to access it because we want stuff. We want to live. We want to stay alive. We want to eat. We want to have sex, and we want to produce, and we want to have fun and enjoy life. So. There needs to be a rational method because there are values clearly to pursue.
Right.
So it's not just symbols and signifiers, and language is not completely manipulating us every step of the way. If we want to live and produce values, and you know, obviously we're into Ayn Rand. She has kind of like a observation level and up approach to she's got an epistemology and an ethics. She's like the adult in the room that they were missing.
Yeah.
But for that, this postmodernism and stuff is fascinating, and I could see the influence on me having then grown up in the '90s and seeing all this satirical comedy and all types of ironic entertainment and stuff like that, and in some cases, the first exposure I would have to a work of art is somebody lampooning that work of art, just irony everywhere, parody everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely impacted me. It definitely shaped my worldview. And yeah, if there wasn't like an adult in the room in my sort of world, which is to say, if there weren't things in reality I cared about that I wanted, then I'd be completely lost.
Interesting, very interesting. So I also noticed that the mockery aspect. I was in a museum, an art museum, famous one, the Huntington, in Los Angeles. And they have a very, very impressive collection of all the portraits from the 18th century by Gainsborough. The famous painting, The Blue Boy, is a very famous painting.
Not by name, but
so yeah, but there's that boy, and he's standing in a very particular posture, and in front of that they put a modern art of like a mockery of that painting of a different man standing in a way in the same way, but he's dressed all differently. So basically, he's making a mockery of the painting in front of it, and I thought it was disgusting that they've done that. It's such a historic piece.
Yeah. So why do you think they were doing that?
I think because they just they know, they see that it's good. They see the value in it, and something about them, they can't handle that. That picture, that I think that art, it debunks many things that they hold to be true. If something so beautiful and perfect can exist in our world, then I think it doesn't go well with other values that they have. They have to make a mockery out of it.
I tend to agree, but also like it's complex because like people are complex and people's philosophical influences are often complex.
Right.
A lot of these people, they're obviously academic. They were educated by a lot of these postmoderns and post-structuralists and all these linguistic philosophers who basically told them what's considered high art, that's racism, that's patriarchy, that's homophobia, and there is a long history of people being oppressed, right? Like so. There's a lot of truth in a lot of these grievances. Again, but there's no adult in the room.
Half truths, not truths.
Maybe less than half, maybe much less than half truth. But there is the truth to the assertion that a historically marginalized people are not. They don't necessarily want to rush to get on board with art that, in their mind, is linked to a society, a culture that hates them. And doesn't want to see them included. But again, where's the adult in the room? At the end of the day, we should, at the end of the day, we do need universalism. Like we do need individualism, which is to say we all have something in common as human beings. We all have access to reality. Some things are universal. So everything is not subjective. We do need that in order to live. And a lot of the same thinkers that are telling these students, reject high art, reject the Western version of beauty, and reject the West.
Beethoven was racist.
Right. The same people telling them that are literally explicitly rejecting the humanist Enlightenment project. They're explicitly rejecting universalism, that rejecting individualism explicitly. So again, it's fascinating stuff for me to read about and to study, and there's a lot of truth buried and intertwined with all of the BS.
Yeah,
but there needs to be an adult in the room.
Yeah, I think I can resonate with that. I really, for example, I read the Play. Do you know that book?
The Play, no.
Very famous by Camus, Albert Camus. He called himself an absurdist, and it's a fascinating book. It's quite prophetic because we had COVID. Many things from there happened in COVID. But in terms of like a book, it's a fascinating book. It's very interesting. The characters, there are different conflicts. But again, philosophically, I think it's very bad.
Existentialist?
Yes. But he would call himself an absurdist. But nevertheless, philosophically bad, but interesting. And I think the bad stuff is generally more interesting than the good stuff.
It's always interesting, especially to me and especially to creative people. It's interesting to deconstruct. It's interesting to say all these words and these ideas and these institutions we take for granted. Are we sure about that? Like, let's call these all into question and get to break them apart, reverse engineer them. How did we arrive at these? And are we taking them for granted? Like, how are we proceeding with these ideas and concepts? So it is very interesting. But again, you need to have an anchor. Yeah. You need to have a compass saying when I'm done exploring, I do want to, there are certain things I care about. You will, yes. And many people, look at the world, right? Look what happens when these philosophies are left unchecked. So philosophy is kind of the missing piece of the puzzle,
The missing link.
The missing link when we talk about art, and art is huge. Art we can't live without it. It changes the world, like without people even realizing it. But without a good philosophy, without explicit, clear, like philosophy for living on Earth, we are left in the hands of the insane. We are taking over the asylum.
Yeah, it would have been horrible. So, all right. So we have editing. We have lyrics. You do a lot of political commentary, right? You incorporate that into your art. Why do you think you tend to do that?
I wouldn't say I do it a lot in like the musical production. I don't do it often. Most of it's personality driven.
I suppose the most successful songs would be more political.
Like, can you think of an example?
For example, the recent one with it's not political, but it's like, I wouldn't say perhaps political is not the right term. I mean, like more relevant occurring media events, like what you did with Andrew Tate, for example.
Oh, if that's political, that's like in the conventional, like talking about society. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so that's
social commentary.
The postmoderns talk about politics. They're usually not talking about who's president and what their policy is. So a lot of having the news on there's like a dated concept. Like I don't really usually I don't have cable. I haven't had cable in years, or TV really in years. But that the idea here is, have the TV on with CNN or Fox or whatever, have 2 TVs on, have a room of TVs on with everything on, have magazines open. There's another antiquated concept, image. You've probably never seen a magazine. Have a magazine open, flip through it, or here's a more of a relevant current way to put it. Look at the trending topics on Twitter. Look at the trending tab. So, what's happening in the culture, what people are talking about. This is like, it's often being discussed for a reason.
Right.
And it's interesting and it's funny. And often, especially these days, you'll have outrageous things trending, like the personality of Andrew Tate. And then he gets arrested, which is, crazy, crazy big news. And meanwhile, Kanye West just got done taking over, the news cycle. So, and Trump now looks like the calm and reasonable guy over there somewhere in the background. So, the world is absurd. I was talking about how Disneyland, according to the postmoderns, see Disneyland as deceptive because Disneyland, it's fake, but that makes you think everything else is real, but really everything else is fake as well. So like when everything is so outrageous, creating something that is outrageous as well.
It's not outrageous.
It's like not outrageous, but it kind of is calling out everything that's meant to be serious and showing you like how stupid they look.
Yeah, it's like the modern artists who there was for example, I know there was a story about a museum in the UK somewhere where someone just put a bucket on the ground and the bucket stayed there, and after a few days someone put it on a column there. And it became a successful work of art because some cleaner forgot the bucket on the floor.
Yeah. So I tend to stick up for the art that people are disparaging, but not that. Like the found object, the bucket, the randomness, the random paint thrown on the canvas. I don't want to stick up for that because I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
No part of me wants to just randomly throw paint onto a canvas or just pick some random objects around the house and say this is art. I can't relate to that. Right. But you know what I was kind of sticking up for recently is the Martin Luther King thing that people were outraged by. You see that? It was like the hands of Martin Luther King wrapped around his wife.
Yeah.
And it was kind of poorly executed in that from most angles it just looks phallic or confusing.
Yeah.
But you say it's horrible. I didn't really.
It's ugly, I think.
I don't think it's that ugly. The hands, I don't know, and I don't mind it. Is what I'm saying. Okay. I don't have a problem with it. It is representational, and I would not have opted for it if you would have asked me, probably. But I'm thinking of it more from the creator's standpoint. Someone had this idea, and he said, "I want to depict Martin Luther King." Right. And so many things have already been done, him standing at the lectern, him marching down the street, like it's been done so many times. What if we just take this momentous occasion of him hugging his wife and just isolate the hands, the arms? yeah, okay. It's look, it's not gonna ring through the centuries like some other art, but I don't have a problem with it. To me, I can see somebody at some point cared about something and had an original idea, and so there's the type of art that a lot of people are disparaging that I actually am kind of okay with.
Yes, I see what you're saying. And do you think so? Do you, what would you think as what's your favorite art? Um,
To consume.
if we're talking about it, yeah.
Well, music, of course, is
Aside
my
from
favorite music.
That's a visual art.
Well, we can even talk about music. I like mostly serious, like dramatic, like heavy rock or like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So maybe not what you would assume, listening to my output for the most part. But other than that, obviously we're into Ayn Rand. The Fountainhead is like a book that I swear by. I've been talking about it, since I read it at 15. Like the moment I began reading that book stuck with me, and the beginning of Rourke's speech at the end is still something I'm clinging to. It's so Ayn Rand's novels, of course. Um, Other art, I've learned to appreciate museums, like paintings, like really, really just great Renaissance art, and that type of thing. A great movie, of course, with great music score. Yeah, what does that leave us anyway? What kind of arts didn't I touch upon? We got
Sculpture.
Sculpture. Sculpture, I still have not really grown to really appreciate. Like when I'm at a museum, I do take some time to contemplate the sculpture. I've seen the David.
Oh, really?
I've seen some of the stuff at the Louvre. The gods. Nike, was it? Who's at the Louvre?
The Greek one. That's the ancient Greek
Nike
artifact. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some amazing sculpture and kind of took it in.
It's also harder for me to connect with sculpture. I'm more of a painting guy.
I'm very impressed by the skill that goes into sculpture. Like
Yeah, it's
that's
amazing.
who the heck knows how to.
It's unimaginable.
Right. I can never do that. I couldn't do it to save my life. But yeah, in terms of what inspires me, I think sculpture is at the bottom of the list.
Well, yeah, I think only the most exceptional sculpture I find very inspiring. But generally, I'm more gravitated towards music and paintings.
Yeah, you like paintings?
Yes, I love paintings, mostly from the 19th century, and also it's I think it's an uncommon opinion because many people from our circles, their favorite art is Renaissance art, classical works, Michelangelo, which is great, of course. But what I found more interesting is what happened in the 19th century.
What did happen in the 19th century?
First, there were revolutions.
Yeah.
For example, they went against the Academy, the Impressionists. They thought painting should be done otherwise. We should, instead of sitting in a studio and painting Greek gods, we should walk out to the street and paint people, paint human life. And that was revolutionary. It changed the whole art scene. And so I like these things. I like when there's change. But of course, when you get to a point that there's so much revolutions, then you stayed with nothing.
Yeah, it's where that line is can be hard to say, but yeah, I mean, like somebody who's creative, like doesn't necessarily want to just repeat what the last generation did. So like we're not going to just want to do the Mona Lisa. Like we want to try other things. And in music, I'm the king of defending modern music because classical has been done.
Yeah,
it's going to continue to be done. You're going to have amazing composers continue to do things, but also people grow up. They love music. They hear some rock and roll that impacts them deeply.
Less of an attention span.
It's not only that. Well, yeah, it is. Maybe it is that, but also, a kid growing up in the 20th century, he has access to classical, but he also hears some rock and roll, and he ends up blending the two. He ends up studying music at a music school and learning all about what's possible and what goes into music. He ends up blending all these different genres. And yeah, of course, you can always say, well, it's not as good as just straight classical. Maybe not to you, and maybe not objectively, but from a critical standpoint. But to this artist, I mean, this is his life. Like this is the air he breathes.
I agree with you. I touched on it on my essay about Van Gogh. Art is it's very important, I think, to stress that art is extremely personal. It's and especially for the artist, it's entire life is only doing that. Is only consuming. If you're a painter and does everything you everything, and you look at the world in different lenses. You think, would that be a good landscape painting? Would that be an interesting person to do a portrait of? And these are personal values. Values are a personal thing. So I think, yeah, some people resonate more with rock, and that's fine. I get amazing value from classical music, from things from the 19th century, especially Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky. But I also consume rock music. I like the Doors. I like what was Pink Floyd. All of these. So it's very personal. It's also very situational. You don't feel like listening to a whole classical music.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that after Pink Floyd and the Doors, some people, the next generation, they blended those with elements of classical, and then their kids, so to speak, the next generation, they blended things even further. By the 2000s, when I was editing away videos, I'm listening to crazy, intense death metal that has clearly opera elements and has classical elements, and the lyrics are insanely impressive about all this very dramatic stuff, telling stories or expressing, epicness. I mean, this is art. It's easy to, to be a crank and just say, oh, they're just mad at reality. No, I mean, these people they've seen what's already been done and they're pushing it further.
Yeah, I appreciate your defense of them. I think it's very important that you're doing that for the people who like that. Some people, might be in the closet that they like these songs.
Yeah,
they are objectivists.
It's ironic if I mean, it's not uncommon, but it's ironic if you're an objectivist who's embarrassed by something that you love. I mean, I think the way to go is to pick at the brains of great people that you meet and say, like, help me understand this. I love this kind of art, but Ayn Rand says this about art. I think with Ayn Rand and with any other objectivist and any other person, people's strength is in talking about what they do like, what they do love, what they do care about. Because people would ask Ayn Rand about stuff at her Q&A, about stuff she'd never thought about. And she would be like surprised at the question. She would give some answer, and then that becomes canon. People talk about it for decades. But really, like, look at what Rand said about art that she does love. Romantic realism. That's a theory of art. What she thought of rock and roll it's just not necessarily her thing to really understand. She just wasn't interested in it. She didn't want to like it.
Yeah, and if you like that and you like that, it's not really an issue of philosophy, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I like pasta. You like meat. That's fine.
Maybe rock and roll is a little different. Music and art is different than food taste, but still.
I think, but I would like to stress that I think there is different potential of value that you can gain. I think there's so much more that you can gain from an hour of a symphony with 100 instruments than with a 3-minute song with 4 instruments and very short lyrics. Not necessary to say that it's better or worse. I don't think that's the correct terms. I think that the aesthetic potential of what the experience you can gain from it has a different limitation.
Look, I mean, the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged they're always going to be worlds beyond, more valuable and life-changing than any comic book or cartoon or short story or anything, right? But there's a time and place for both. Right. And there's a value to both. And if you're the creator, if you're a person who at some point in your life fell in love with the comic strip or you fell in love with the short story, and that's what you want to do and try your hand at, now this is deeply personal to you. Right. And the high art is for it's you can go to the museum every 6 months and that's all the high art you need to keep you going, right? Like, right. You watch a sitcom after work at the end of the day, and it's more like comfort food.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a time and a place, and the people producing that sitcom, I mean, these are driven people. These are people who are deeply engaged with what it takes to produce something and and create something. So.
Right. And I think it's also important to try different things.
Yeah.
To see what you like.
I wasn't sure why this topic is the topic of your podcast when you told me about this, because I've only seen you in like delegation, like how would you describe the type of work I see you doing? You're networking, you're making appointments, you're doing very technical logistical stuff. So I was curious, like why do you do a show about art? Are you pandering? Are you what is it? Like, are you like I don't know if you're familiar with Insane Clown Posse. These guys are from Michigan. So every once in a while, someone tries to reach their fan base. They got like a very cultish fan base. They wear makeup, like clown makeup. So if you show up there with the clown makeup and you're like, hey guys, I'm a juggalo, I'm into ICP, their fans, they can sense if you're just trying to get their money, like you're just trying to exploit the thing. So I was like, are you like doing that with all that to say? Clearly you're not. Talking to you're into classical. You're into you talk about 19th century painting. Yeah. This is pandering to nobody.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm passionate about my work, what I do with the organization that I work for. But also I think my intellectual passion is art. Both creating and consuming.
You create art?
I create. Yes, I want to create movies. I've created in the past movies. I'm working on a movie right now.
Yeah.
With a few friends.
Cool. I'm a bit of an actor as well.
Really?
I guess I didn't mention that. I've been in a couple indie movies.
Israel, when you'll be in Israel.
We can definitely have a shoot.
All right.
Let's do it.
I'll take you up on that.
Break me into the Israeli scene. I would love. I know your project is it's indie, I'm guessing.
Of course.
But I would love to be an actor in Israel. I would love to be cast as like the American guy.
There are only like 20 actors.
So let me be the token American guy, right? The guy who's like, I could do a little bit of a religious dialect, I could speak English, I could speak a little Hebrew, like as like a as a
you can have your niche.
I have a niche. Yeah, absolutely. Just give me a shot. I like how we're talking to an entire country's industry. Like, hey, just talk to the guy for me.
Yeah.
But actually, like but when it comes to like networking and like engaging with people, it's not art, quote unquote.
No.
But there's an art to it. Like
the art of.
Aristotle used the word artist to mean like an expert, right? Like. So, like,
there's art and there's craftsmanship.
Every time I'm in a social situation where I'm like just having the time of my life and even kind of controlling the room a little bit, or just having an adventure with involving other people, I'm always thinking like, I kind of want to do this for a living. Like, I want to network and charm people and I want to be the guy in the room.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd call that an art, but I want to do that.
It's a skill. It's a skill that you have to develop.
Not only a skill, but like as an artist, I'm like creating something. Like we're creating an improvisational scenario here.
Yes.
I want to be the guy in the room. Like you're meeting with a billionaire or something like that. You're meeting with someone who's used to being flattered. A beautiful, beautiful woman used to being flattered. You get me in the room.
Yeah,
I'm the guy in the room.
You need to be creative.
I'm curious. I'm creative. I'm just the guy who people are like, well, why is he here? He's the guy in the room. He's getting paid a lot of money to be in this room right now. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, this is a job. There are organizations.
I hope so.
They are paying for that.
Specifically, the guy in the room.
Yeah.
There should be a job.
I think there is for sales. Definitely.
Yeah. Our friend off camera just said that's my job.
Yeah. She can't be mentioned here.
No.
Anyway, so Mr. Rucka, I wanted to tell you. So yes, I do have my career and my work, but I think when I'm having the most fun is when I sit down at the computer and I write an article that I'm happy with. And the words just flow. You know that from your own experience. It's so much fun. That's the passion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll make it into a career.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good writer as well, by the way. Like I've had teachers like tell me like, you're the chosen one.
You should write.
I mean, how many hours in the day are there really? Like, I'm not that excited to
Depends
write.
how much you sleep.
Right. But it's like, I don't want to write. So what should I write? Articles?
You can write stories, write short stories.
I've never had that. I've never had the plot thing. And another thing I learned about from reading all this 20th century philosophy, like the feminists, like the feminist theory, or like there's as many feminists as there are like sects of Christianity.
Really?
And a lot of them don't get along because they disagree strongly with each other. There are feminists who are like, first version of feminism was like celebrating female authors, right? Agatha Christie or whatever.
And equality for women.
But like, yeah, they would say like, oh, like Monica Dickens, whatever, like female authors, they were doing a girl's version, like a female's version of writing a novel. So we get we get something slightly different. But then the next wave of feminists or another group of feminists, they said, no. They said a novel is masculine by nature. It's every word means something literally. There's logic. Everything is limited. They would say like a penis. It's just one. There's one, and that's it. Femininity is complex, like a vagina. I mean, they were seriously putting this in academic papers, and people still take it very seriously. You know,
you really read that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
that sounds hilarious.
I'm barely summarizing all this stuff, but
these things won't catch in Israel.
Well, hold on. We'll get to Israel in a minute, but feminists were saying they would say a novel is masculine because it's logical, because it's limited, because a word can only mean one thing in a novel. But poetry is feminine. And as I'm reading this, I'm thinking like, I'm a poet. I love using a word where it could have a double meaning, or
perhaps you're a woman.
Hey, right. So, but like, there is kind of again, there's always something interesting that I find in reading, even philosophers that I ultimately disagree with. But like poetry is kind of my thing. So I'm into writing poetry, or I'm into writing lyrics, whatever it is. I'm not into writing stories. So I've never thought of like a plot.
Or
to me,
epic poems.
Yeah, something like that. A poem. Like I've never had. To me, people who come up with stories like that, to me, is doing the impossible. Yeah. How do you know what's going to happen next?
Yeah, I also think
turn on the TV, you see what's going to happen. How do you remember Beavis and Butt-head? I was like, there was a point in my life, maybe you're too young, but I used to find them so hysterical. Now that is art. But that's also, it's very like situational and a very much like place and time when Beavis and Butt-head like kind of represented the American youth, I think. To a lot of people, it was kind of poking fun, but there were segments in Beavis and Butt-head where they're watching music videos that were popular at the time. At one time, they're watching the Beastie Boys, the rap group, and Beavis and Butt-head are talking, and Butt-head it goes, I heard that guy's dad writes movies. And Beavis is like, what? He watches movies? No, he writes movies. What does that mean? It's like he writes down what happens in a movie. He's like, so this guy goes to the movies, sits down, watches the movie, and writes it down. He goes, yeah, except he writes it down before it happens. And Beavis goes, well, anyone could do that. Here, watch. This guy goes meets some chicks, and she's got big boobs. It's like, so, yeah. I mean, how do you write down a story before it happens on the screen?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are magicians.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so we have. Did you read that book of that the wife of Sartre? She was a famous feminist. What was her name? She started the whole feminist movement, I think. Never mind. So
that sounds interesting, but I mean, I might
should look it up.
I might have read about her
if you're interested in that.
I might have read a summary of her work, but I haven't read anything by her. But yeah, these people who are these writers who are saying a novel is masculine, but a poem is feminine because of its ambiguity. They were literally explicitly rejecting what we call the law of identity. They were explicitly rejecting a word meaning something. They were rejecting A is A, like explicitly saying that logic is a tool for men, and later, white men or straight men or whatever, like cisgendered men. Thinkers, theorists have explicitly said that logic is a tool for the powerful to oppress others. And again, when there's no adult in the room, when there's no philosopher who can counter what they're saying point by point, I mean, these ideas catch on. So, definitely have fun deconstructing, I say, definitely go there. Don't hold back. But at the end of the day, we need an adult in the room.
Right. I think it's a very nice message to close the podcast with. I think it was a fascinating discussion, Rucka. And appreciated that you agreed to do that. And yeah, definitely. If you don't know Mr. Rucka, check out his channel, Rucka Ali. And
or don't. It's not for everyone.
Any closing statement?
Have an adult in the room. Don't play with fire.
And experiment. Experiment. Listen to other people. People who are excited about something. There's a reason that they're excited about it. They might be wrong.
Yeah. You mustn't ever be in the closet, so to speak, about something that inspires you, that you have joy. If you're virtue signaling in public about how much of an objectivist you are, but on the down low you're consuming art that Ayn Rand would disapprove of, and you're being fake and living with duality, I am going to find you and I am going to expose you, and you are going to curse the day that I was born. But I'm sort of joking. But yeah, I mean, come on, guys. You have one life. You really want to spend it, living in other people's heads and worrying about their thoughts.
Be first-handed.
Be first-handed. Things you love matter too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you very much. And till the next episode.
To the next episode.
Bye-bye.